Good morning, brilliant scholars. Welcome to Tuesday and day 79 of our corona outbreak. This, folks, is definitely one of those days that I wish we were in the classroom. We have so much stuff going on around the world, and of course, with social studies, since we talk about current events every day, this would be a field day, and definitely plenty to talk about, explain. But let's talk about some of the, how about some positive news? Starting on the very top there, UW announced that they're bringing back their football players next week. Now, positive, obviously, UW fans and football fans will like that, but even if you're not a fan of football, that means that we're inching a little bit closer towards normalcy. If you want to be back in a regular desk and in a regular schedule and do things like you would like to regularly do, we need things like that to happen. So I was really pleased to see that in the newspaper this morning. That was actually from the Journal Sentinel, not CNN. Sometimes I forget to change where those things came from. Another positive thing is our percentages of tests that test positive for coronavirus actually did go up from yesterday, but yesterday was incredibly low. And today is still very low, so 3.9%. Now, one caveat to that is there were very few tests. We went from as high as 10,000 tests last week, sometime last week, to much lower, somewhere in the hundreds of tests, I believe it was. Now, let's get to the story that obviously is making all of the news all over the place, and of course, that's the continued protests that are happening all around the country. And I would think one of the most important things for us to do is to look at all these events critically as far as especially where we're getting information. If you feel that this is a really great thing to be showing support for the movement, you can find that information. If you think that protests are a horrible thing, you can find places that have only that information. And you really have to kind of dig around and look to find out the full scope of what's going on out there. So I've got two images that you can see. One is an image of community members that are cleaning up, volunteering to clean up after protests during the day. And on the right, I've got a picture of our state capitol that has been damaged by protesters. So we've got two different things going on. We have at times very peaceful protests by many people, including celebrities. And what we're also seeing, especially during the night, are sometimes a completely different set of people. In fact, the peaceful protesters would argue that they are a completely different set of people that are going out and really taking advantage of the situation, looting, things like that. This morning on the news, they reported that Milwaukee had no, at least reported cases of looting last night. So that is a good thing. One thing we do know with all cases throughout history where we have cases of rioting and whatnot is that it eventually subsides. Now, that being said, the other thing going on is the president yesterday announced that he would call out the United States military in cities that have not done a good job of controlling some of the uprising that is happening. And that has become controversial. Strong supporters say that that would be a great way to completely stop any violence that's happening. Critics are saying that's one of the things that sometimes cranks up violence. If you think of sometimes foreign countries where well, look at the riots that have happened in places like Hong Kong when the military turns up. So there are definitely historical examples of if you bring the military in, or even if you bring extremely heavily armed police forces towards protests, and not even necessarily riots, but protests, that sometimes that show of force ends up in becoming a use of force, and not blaming either side for that, but oftentimes force equals force. So we are definitely looking at some very unique times. I would challenge you to look at it definitely critically, try to find as much information as you can. And maybe I'd like to hear from some of you if you've personally been there, personally been involved. Again, like we would, I guess, if we were in class, because that's certainly what we'd be doing. All right, what are you doing today? History. I did actually include something a little bit different for you today. I said you guys could be working on the test review. Remember, tests will be on Friday, and you will be required to take it during your normal time period. But I do have the reading in there for you guys for anybody who wants a shot at extra credit on the test. You don't have to do it, But for some of you who want to learn about, for instance, hippies in the 1960s, check out that reading and you might be able to better answer the question on the test on that. Global, same as it has been. Finish up those papers, get them turned in, and be all done. As always, if you guys have any questions or anything, let me know. Seniors, we'll be talking with you guys tonight in the start of our graduation ceremonies. Don't forget to tune in live to that. All right, have a great Tuesday, guys.